Alright, YouTube, once again it looks like something that I predicted has been borne out. Trump's plan that he has reiterated now does call for a wall. So that is now something he is again pledging to now that the election is over. A wall of some sort will be built, whether it's a double-layer fence, a concrete embankment with a stone wall on top, steel grilling. What exactly does it matter? The concept of a continuous physical barrier, regardless of the form it takes, is just to dissuade people from trying. It's a psychological barrier almost more than it is a physical barrier. What form it takes, it doesn't really ultimately matter. If you staff it properly and you allow the border agents to actually do their job, it probably doesn't even matter whether you just finish the fence that's already there with a concrete embankment or whether you make a 50-foot wall. Ultimately, it probably doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Number two, he's saying he will immediately deport 2 or 3 million people upon taking office. Now, it's an interesting number, because that's probably roughly the number of people that have come over illegally that have committed felonies or violent crimes while here. What does this also mean? It means that 10 or 11 million people aren't accounted for in that 2 or 3 million. What do you think he's planning to do? I've said all along that he's likely to deport anybody who has gotten a criminal history while here. For anybody else, he's going to do one of several things, depending on what class of immigrant they would otherwise fall into. If it's a person who's come here, they've had kids, especially for females, or they are a minor, or they have a family, a significant other, something like that, I don't think he's going to deport them. I think that he'll show them mercy, because once you've gotten the criminal illegals out that have actually committed crimes while here other than being here illegally, you probably don't have nearly as much social pressure on even the right wing to deport anybody else. One thing we've got to realize, I think, is that the fact that there are illegal immigrants in this country that have done terrible things, they've murdered people, they've raped people, selling drugs, whatever they're doing, and there are many hundreds of thousands of people just in the class of illegals committing violent crimes. I realize that the rate is not astronomically higher than the general population, but you've got to hear me out here. The fact that they do exist just gives more ammunition to people who would love to see all minorities deported, honestly, in some cases. If you take away that criminal element from the illegal immigrant population, most of the complaints about them from people in the southwestern region will end up boiling down to, oh, well, they're on welfare, and nothing more heinous than that. It would release a huge amount of social alienation and pressure on the government and on the culture of some of these states that have a southern border. They have a border with Mexico. You're talking about California, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. An enormous amount of pressure from the native population as well as legal immigrants who aren't, hell-bent on allowing just anybody in themselves. In many cases, they came here to escape conditions in some Hispanic state or in Eastern Europe or whatever. What you would see is that they would calm down about this issue, because if the criminals, the actual criminals who have done things other than just come here illegally, jump the border, are gone, you no longer have the conflation of all illegal immigrants with some sort of substantial crime. 2 or 3 million people is a pretty good estimate of the total of that 14 million or whatever people who have committed some sort of violent or felonious act once here. The problem is, in many cases, the government has not actually pushed the issue with their home countries to get them deported. So they sit in a jail cell. Sometimes there's no way to identify even necessarily who they are. They just sit in jail. They eat up resources. It's not like they're not suffering in jail anyway. What's the point? Why are we doing this? It makes no sense. I have no problem. I'll say this. If Trump were to argue that we need to have literal squads of armed police go door to door in the southern states, in the Southwest, and round up everybody who was here illegally, regardless of status, and kick them across the border, I would deeply oppose such a plan. But if Trump's plan is to use the information we've already got to identify those who are not citizens of the United States and are already somewhere in the criminal justice system on record, whether ID'd or not, and he wants to kick them out, Whether we sweeten the deal and pay off the foreign nations or not makes no difference to me. I would support that plan. It doesn't breach the Constitution. These people are not just here illegally, which I've said before, I have no problem with. I don't care. But if they're committing crimes, well, yeah, I do have a problem with that. If they're committing some violent act, if they're committing any felonious act. I would even make an exception. Somebody comes here illegally, they get caught smoking a joint in some state like Texas where it's still legal. They go in for 6 months. Would I kick them out? No, I wouldn't care. If they're not doing anything else wrong, no, I wouldn't care. If they're employed, I would go after the employer, not the immigrant. I'd say, okay, well, you're going to owe back taxes. I hope you understand that. You're going to be paying more. If you manage to pay that total off and you're not committing any other crime, okay, yeah, you can get conditional residency and we'll see what happens from there. And then you can apply for citizenship. I wouldn't care. Honestly, I'd let them in. They're doing good things. They're doing their job. They're not a criminal. Maybe they have a family. Who gives a shit? I don't even give a fuck. But if somebody's come here and their goal in coming here is, hey, I'm going to deal drugs, I'm going to siphon the welfare system and do nothing, I'm just sort of wandering, I'm already in prison because I assaulted somebody, yeah, I'd kick them out. And I'd tell the parent country of these people, you'd best be taking these folks back if you want to trade with us. Otherwise, things are going to get a little bit dicey, because we may think about freezing all of your assets that are in this country. How's about that? And they would cry foul, and they say, oh, it's a trade war, oh, we'll retaliate. No, you won't. No, you won't. Your little economy is not going to retaliate against the United States. Nobody else in the world's going to give a fuck. Nobody's going to care. That's what Trump, I think, is aiming to do. Yeah, he'll put a physical barrier there, whether it's a wall or a fence. He'll deport the criminal illegals, which everyone expects him to deport. I don't think he's going to end up deporting the other 10 or so million people. They will gain conditional residency or some status akin to it upon paying their back taxes, not breaking any further laws, being law-abiding residents of the United States, and he'll go from there. And he'll let the issue go at that. The real problem we have is that we have no way to control the flow of illegal immigrants because we don't have a contiguous border defense system. We don't have enough staff on the southern border. And we've given people a good reason to illegally immigrate. Because currently we don't even allow border control to kick people back across the border, or even to really question them and hold them for any substantial level of time. They come in. If they're a criminal, they enter our actual prisons, contributing to overcrowding. We have to pay taxes for that. If they're not criminals, strangely, the states end up largely expending their force on rounding them up. They still go to prison. The host country, the parent country rather, won't take them back, and we end up with a diplomatic nightmare. There are roughly 12 to 14 million illegal immigrants in this country. Most have done nothing wrong other than come here illegally. The 2 to 3 million have. Yeah, they should be deported. I don't have a problem with that. There's nothing unconstitutional about it. It's not totalitarianism. It's not racism. It's not bigotry. Some of these people aren't from Latin America. Some of these people are Eastern Europeans. Some of these people are from parts of Asia. Some of them are from Africa. Hell, there's probably a few British illegal immigrants here. Maybe there are some Canadians that overstayed a visa somewhere in the country. They're illegal immigrants. Just because a person is white doesn't necessarily mean they're not. They're going to get forced back across the border too if they have ill intent in being here. Good riddance, they're criminals. But for somebody who's come here, and they had a girlfriend or boyfriend, oh shit, I knocked them up. Well, nah, I just won't go back to Mexico or whatever. I'll just, fucking stay here as an illegal because I've got like a son or a daughter on the way. Or they've come here and they've taken work illegally. Why would I blame them from that? Half the time these corporations on the southern border, they practically advertise, hey, we'll hire you illegally, muchachos. We'll put you in the, if you die on the job because there are no safety standards, we'll bury you along the border in a shallow grave. Like I've said, I have a feeling a lot of those shallow graves they're finding, those aren't cartel hit jobs. That has nothing to do with cartels. Cartels prefer to advertise their kills. They'll hang somebody's head on a pike in front of their home for the police to find. Why are they being actually buried? Oh, that's right. Those are illegal immigrants who died on the job in some sweatshop on the northern side of the border and got dumped when they died. Oh, yeah, Pablo starved to death. Take him out back and bury him. That's what they think of. I'd go after the corporations, not the illegal immigrants. Hell, if they're being exploited, I'd give them residency faster. I'd say, well, you're already working hard. It's obvious that you have no problem working for $2 an hour. Well, now you're going to get minimum wage. You're still going to owe back taxes, but now you'll have safety regulations keeping you from starving to death, hopefully. So, go back to work for a couple years, then we can see about getting you citizenship or something. Yeah, it's a good idea. Who the hell cares if we're deporting people who are felons? It'd be nice if we could deport our violent felons that are actually citizens. Of course, that would be unconstitutional. We put them in Madagascar. And I mean people like George Soros and Hillary Clinton, primarily. People that have others assassinated on a regular basis. They should be the first to go. But no, Trump's not being like a bigot or something by suggesting that people who come here illegally and then commit crimes should be deported. It's not racism. Hispanic isn't a race anyway. Some of these people are from Europe. I think oftentimes the left wants to believe that everybody who's here illegally must, of necessity, have come through the southern border, number one. Number two, be from a country south of the border. That's just not the case. Some of them come through the Canadian border. In fact, if they're coming from anywhere else in the world, it's a lot easier. The Canadian border's larger, it's more porous, it's not as well guarded. There's certainly no border wall on most of that. At most, you've got a single-layer chain-link fence, and in some areas, you don't even have that. Ever been to the northern border with Canada? It's like basically completely free movement on both sides. You just give someone people in Vermont here, I think they can cross with just their driver's license. I don't even think that you need a passport to cross the border in Vermont. It's actually very funny, or at least it used to be that way. I know that for sure. It may still be that way now. This is not some horrible evil scheme. If he were to suggest, yeah, I'm going to kick them all out immediately, here come the squads of militarized police. They're going to search door to door and hold your family at gunpoint while they check under your floor for illegals. Yeah, I'd oppose that absolutely. I think most people would oppose that. In fact, it would probably cause a huge number of riots and lead to a huge amount of domestic chaos on both sides of the border. And rightfully so, because that would be literal totalitarianism. But it's not going to happen. It's going to have to operate within the Constitution. So yeah, I support this plan. Strange as though that may sound, 2 or 3 million people, that sounds like a lot, but when you're considering 14 million total, more or less, yeah, 2 or 3 million is roughly the equivalent of the number of people within that number who have committed some sort of other crime while they're here. I don't care if they get deported. They wouldn't be eligible for citizenship under our laws anyway, in most cases. If it's a violent act or a felony, you'd have to wait, I think it's like 10 years if you can even reapply at all for certain crimes. So why would I want them in this country? And I don't care where they're from. I don't care if they're, whiter than me. It doesn't have anything to do with ethnicity or race. Some of these people speak fluent English and so forth. So it's funny to watch people complain a little bit about this plan, as though he were saying, oh, I'm just going to kick all the immigrants out, everyone who's ever come to this country, I'm going to strip them of their citizenship, force them across the southern border, who cares where they're from? It's not what he's doing. I would support this plan, generally speaking. That's about all. Peace out.